In this Luminar tutorial I will show you how to change this photograph into this photograph, and as you can see the colors pop more and the lines are more straight. So to start with, I would like to change the profile, because the profile is in Luminar default not the nicest profile in my opinion, and when I change it, for example, to camera landscape, the colors are already much better. Maybe a little bit too much, but we can decrease the saturation later on. Another issue in this photograph is the distortion. You can see I took this photograph with a 100 to 400 millimeters lens, actually a very nice lens for architecture, because you can zoom in to the details of buildings, and what you see here are two buildings in front of each other, but now it looks like they are connected. This building in fact is in the front, this building is in the back, but it looks different in this photograph, and that's the nice thing about architecture photography. So what I want to change in the lens correction is auto distortion. I turn it on, and let's zoom in for the chromatic aberration. If that's in this photograph, I don't think it's visible here because the contrast is not very big. I also don't see purple or green lines, so I don't turn it on in this case. I'm looking at this line. It looks more straight as before because of the auto distortion correction. So you can see that this automatic lens correction works pretty well. What I want to do is, as you can see, this line is not parallel on the side of the frame. I would like to have it completely vertical. So I go to vertical, and to see if we can improve that. I think this already helps quite a lot. Do you like landscape and cityscape photography? Sign up for our free Facebook group and learn more about landscape and cityscape photography. We organize nice photo challenges, you can help each other out, you can share your own photos, so sign up, join the group, and see you there. So let's apply that, and as you can see, because of this correction, the vertical correction, some pixels are missing now in the bottom. I think what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to make maybe a square image or a 4:5 aspect ratio, also because you can see there's like a pole here, not the nicest part. Also this part is quite bright because of the reflecting sunset, and I don't want the corner of a photograph to get so much attention. So I think for this photograph it's better to get rid of the bottom and to focus more in the top part. So let's go to the crop tool. I will change, no, not transpose, I go to the 4:5 aspect ratio. Well, still a little part over there of the pole. Well, we can remove it later, but maybe we can make a nice crop, because what I'm also checking is where to start. So I think it's very nice to look at this line, that it goes to the corner of the photograph, and in that case, well, we can keep it like this with a few windows on the left side, but we can also make it a bit smaller like this, so it starts with the dark part. So let's apply this to see how it looks like. I think we should crop it even more, because I don't like this part too much. Maybe we should start here also with a window. And that's the nice thing about cropping. There's not one way that's the best. Sometimes there are multiple ways. Oh, the aspect ratio changed. Not sure why that happened. think I pressed the wrong button in my mouse. So with this crop, you see this line goes to this corner. Now the line goes down here, so I think I should make it bigger to at least see where this line is going. So it doesn't end up in the corner like it does here, but that's impossible because the lines are all in the same direction. And then we start with a small dark line here and then the windows. I think this is gonna give us a nice result. Yes, I actually do like it in this way. So let's keep it like this and go back to the essentials to edit this photograph. I go to AI Enhance to see what AI Accent is doing. In general, this improves photographs already quite a lot, and it's for me a very time-saving feature in post-processing. So that's why I love to use this a lot. There are no overexposed parts, there are no underexposed parts, so that's already quite good. Maybe I can add some extra contrast to see what happens. Makes blue a bit more bluer. Also makes the lines here a bit darker. It works out pretty well in this photograph. And that's the nice thing about architecture photos. In general, especially when you have images like this, where the subject fills the frame completely, you can work with the sliders you have in Essentials very well, because you apply them to the whole photograph, and in general, if it works out in one building, it also works out in another building. Let's see what Shadows does. If you brighten it up a little bit, just a bit, gives a little bit more detail in the rooms in this building. But I think I like the exposure like this, so let's not change too much. The white balance, I'm happy with that also. I like the color contrast in this photograph with the blue tones, the warm tones. Maybe we should decrease the saturation a little bit. The colors are quite bright, and that's really up to what you like. Some people maybe like even more saturated colors or bright colors. I think in this case I will decrease it a little bit. Of course, it had something to do with the profile I applied. The landscape, the camera landscape profile, is already quite saturated, and for this photograph it was maybe a bit too much, but with saturation in -5 you can fix that problem. The color cast, well, there was like a warm color cast because of the sunset. It doesn't annoy me in this photograph, so I'm happy with the colors here. Let's see if we can improve the warm tones maybe even more by changing the saturation. The luminance. I think it's nice to brighten them a little bit, and let's see what we can do with the cooler tones. I want to brighten, I want to make it a bit brighter also. So it's a slight change, but I think it looks better. Let's move to structure, because with structure, and especially in photographs like this in general, it works out quite well. Especially here you see a lot of details, and with some extra structure you can emphasize those details a little bit better. And the nice thing about AI structure is that in general it is applied to the places in your photograph where you see structure, like here. But it doesn't, you don't see it in the more plain area. So like the windows or the bigger blue parts here on the left, there you're not going to see any difference. So it's really, it really focuses on the lines and the place where it should be applied. And also this, it's not a huge change, but I think it improves the photograph a little bit. Let's move on to the denoise and detail enhancer. let's see, I took this photograph with ISO 500. I shot it handheld, and because it was 100 to 400 millimeters, I wanted to have a shutter speed of at least 1/500 of a second to avoid any movement. In the end, the photograph is really sharp because of the fast shutter speed, but I needed a little bit higher ISO, and that can cause some noise in the photograph. And I think in this photograph the noise is not a really big issue. You can see it a little bit, but it doesn't annoy me, so I don't want to remove it in this case, because denoise always goes together with a little bit of a blurry look of your photograph. You're losing sharpness. Because the photo is already sharp, I don't want to apply any extra sharpening or extra details, because that makes the photograph more grainy, and since it already has a little bit of grain because of the higher ISO, I don't want to emphasize that. So in this case, for this photograph, I don't use denoise, I don't use the detail enhancer. Vignette, in general, I do like to use it for landscape photos, also for cityscapes, skyline photos. I do like it a lot, but for a photograph like this, where the focus is the architecture of both buildings, I don't want to focus only in the middle. I think the whole image is important, so that's why I don't apply a vignette. I don't think a creative touch should be applied to this photograph. I prefer to keep it realistic, how it is, how it looks like in real life. It's not a portrait, so we don't have to do anything here. And in the Pro, we can do maybe some advanced contrast. It's in general a filter I like a lot. Instead of adding contrast in the whole photograph, you can be more specific over here and apply contrast only in the highlights or in the midtones or in the shadows. So they're not really bright parts, so I think the highlights isn't going to do a lot. Well, you see that the highlights get darkened a little bit. I don't like that. I like the bright parts here, so let's not touch this slider. But for the midtones, I think it's going to work to add some contrast. Yeah, I do like this a lot. As you can see, it doesn't influence the highlights, so the bright parts here and here, but also here in the windows, it doesn't do anything with that, but it applies mainly in the wall of the building. And because of that, the contrast gets a little bit bigger between the wall and the windows. So I do like the midtones contrast. The shadows contrast, I don't want to use it because it takes well, maybe a little bit to brighten up this a little bit, but no, let's keep it like this. So this is how the photo is in the end after my edit. We came from this and we end up like this. So I think it's quite an improvement. Let me know what you think about this tutorial. If you have any experience with editing architecture photos in Luminar 4. If you have additional tips, please share them below this video, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because more videos are coming soon. In our website you can download a free cheat sheet about the Luminar keyboard shortcuts. So if you want to learn more shortcuts on the keyboard in a very fast way for Windows or for Mac, go to our website roasterphoto.com, and in the menu go to giveaways, free Luminar shortcuts cheat sheet, and you end up in this page where you can download it right away.